right. It is time for Dan to be in the hot seat of our new side content. We're off for the season that we call Convince Me.
Convince me, Carl.
And last week, I guess if they go in that order, Dan handed me the 1973 release by the band, not the person, Alice Cooper, $1 Billion Babies. And we got to discuss that after I kind of blitz listened to it over the course of 3 days. I, in turn, handed Dan a lesser-known album by the artist LTJ Bukem, Bukem, that is, from across the pond. Mm-hmm. And the album is Journey Inwards. It's actually a 2-disc set. It was released in 2000.
Yeah, so whereas I gave Carl a 40-minute album to cover in 72 hours, he gave me an 88-minute album.
You're welcome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, but you gave me Alice Cooper. And you knew that was going to twist my guts a little bit. And you know what? It did in a good way. Mm-hmm. Not as well as he twists others' guts, allegedly. But sure. The reason I felt like I could give you this album is because this album's more of a vibe. There's very little lyrical content for you to have to contemplate. So take that out of it, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. It strikes, I gave it to you because I was like, there's no way, A, this is on the list, and B, there's no way you would ever stumble over this album in your normal everyday life, in my personal opinion, and choose it.
Right.
Or these albums.
So stylistically, how do you classify this? I know what it's actually classified as, but...
Well, so I would probably disagree with whatever its actual classification is.
Right.
Because this, to me, is such a wonderful primer in several electronic music styles. And so I would call it drum and bass. Mm-hmm. I would call it house.
Okay.
It flirts with hip-hop production.
Flirts with ambience.
It flirts with ambient music hard.
Right.
And so it kind of has all of the trappings of a very kind of like chameleon, not to ever use that term because I know I said it last week, of electronic music. It falls in the greater subgenre of EDM. Mm-hmm. And specifically in 2000, EDM music, my eyes were wide open because I was in 10th grade. And we had a radio station called Z104. Okay. And EDM music was having a moment across MTV, which, still was doing a lot of music back then, especially in the awakening of MP3 and file sharing sites like Napster. Mm-hmm. This kind of stuff was getting passed around on forums and on the old Pirates Bay type of sites and the torrent sites.
Yep.
And this was club music that was pulled from the UK. But what LTJ Bukem does that's so different than any of the other subgenres I just named under that EDM blanket is he blends it and he's pristine about it. Everything he does is really clean and really pretty, and there's this perfectionism that goes to it. So passing that on to you, I was like, oh, I think this is such a nice primer to getting into some of these genres. Because it's such a pleasant listen.
Yeah. And I would agree, like, at first listen, I think there's only one song where I could actually discreetly hear the loop. Like you have to be listening. Yeah. But you can hear the loop. And it was the bass part. I can't remember which song it was because I heard it and now I've forgotten which one it is. So it's
love that. Yeah. And sometimes that's a stylistic thing.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the looping and sampling traditional DJs, and so you go and you look at RJD2, for instance. Mm-hmm. I've seen him play live a gazillion times. My favorite time was on a boat. He had 6 turntables, and we took a boat all the way around Manhattan, or took it all the way around the island.
You were on a boat?
I'm on a boat. Will the algorithm pick that up? And hearing sample chops is a big piece of his art. He's considered best in the biz pretty much in his class. DJ Qbert, same thing. Mm-hmm. And so when you pull from traditional samplers, sometimes that's not frowned upon.
Yeah. One thing I learned, because I did a little bit of like looking into, because as I'm listening to the music and knowing that, I always think it's funny that drum and bass music does not contain drums.
Yeah, or real bass.
Or real bass, right. And so I was looking at samples and stuff like that. So LTJ Bukem. Do you know the origin of that stage name?
I do not.
LTJ stands for Longtime Junglist.
Okay, so jungle being the, once again, subgenre of music, jungle.
Yep. And Bukem comes from Hawaii 5-0. There's a catchphrase, Bukem Dano. And his real first name is Daniel. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
That's so deep.
Yeah. That was cool.
As a producer and performer, I really like his style. Whenever he came over to the States, we would try and see him. Philly, Baltimore, DC. Not only does he produce his own work, he then is proficient at going out and actually parsing it out and DJing it. I make this distinction because a lot of folks can sit behind whatever program they use nowadays on Ableton or whatever. They get to the stage, they're just hitting play on their track. They're really not doing much else. He's fantastic to watch the way he operates his hardware. And on top of this, he is an MC. And so he has this really kind of cool style. And was really prevalent in a lot of the jungle music too. He has that kind of that off, like it's like a refined fake Jamaican accent.
Yep.
That people go for in this style of music. And so he'll get up there and just spit these fun kind of nonsense verses over really cool drum and bass while you're dancing. And then it's like, yeah. Right. And it just gives it like this chant. It gives it this whole other like level.
Yeah, that's awesome. So question for you, me not being a connoisseur in this space, when I was looking at the track listing and the personnel, the liner notes, of course, irritating about the liner notes to me is everyone is just first initial, last name.
Love that.
I was able to grab a few actual names by looking in there. But I think is interesting is for someone who's mixing these things and DJing these things, there are other people who are credited as mixers on this.
Sure.
So if you're the DJ essentially putting this together, isn't that kind of part of it?
It's a big part of the culture though, is to share, right?
Okay.
And so there's like such things as like these DJ or producer squads.
Okay.
Right. And you know, this guy has a pretty lengthy discography and he's really well known in the UK. And so if you look at kind of his background and who he's affiliated with, which are probably a lot of these producers you're pulling with, don't be surprised if a lot of these are collaborations that have a lot of people's hands on them and he's just handing out credits where he can. Yeah,
because within his discography, there are a lot of compilations and a lot of EPs and things like this. There's only one like full length album.
Yeah.
To speak of,
which
we're talking
that's
about.
how it is. It's like the original, like, you know, nowadays, like for rap, they have the mixtape.
Yep.
That was it. Because when you go to a club, this is all based on club dance culture, right?
Sure.
It's all about how can you remix somebody's remix, and they're always playing with the meta, right? I don't think that culture changed. I think they took that right to the CD.
Yeah.
And that's all they knew how to do. And they're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of credit being given kind of around the board. His style, though, his trademark, you could hear an LTJ Bukem tune against somebody else's. And I'm sure we'll bring it up in the second half of this when we're talking about some instrumentation that really stands out. That was always kind of his calling card.
Yeah.
So the thing you said earlier was, why did you give me this album? I said, I'll hold this for tape.
Sure.
I gave it to you for two reasons. One, I didn't think this was really a genre that you've ever dipped your toe in. And I think you and I both called each other's bluffs on what we gave each other in that realm. Haha. And we weren't too mean to each other.
No.
The second reason I gave you this is because little known fact to or maybe a fact people know if you're a close listener to us, but Daniel, around the pandemic, you took off heavily in running. And I used to run. Now you trail run like a crazy person. I would just run, several miles, and it was a calming thing for me. And music in this genre, specifically LTJ Bukem, aided me not only in pacing and just being able to run very, very like smooth. This was like a great music to zone out to. I use this in recovery a lot as well. And so trying to sleep or relax or rest after any stress or any of that kind of physical movement, this is the closest music that I could bring in as an example is something that feels like a balm or a medication to me.
That makes sense. I get that too. It's funny because you mentioned, this is a gateway into EDM, and when I hear these songs, I'm never inspired to dance. I can see this being a great soundtrack for running. I prefer to run with my thoughts. I don't run to music, but if I were to run to music, this would be a great album, I think, to do that to, for sure.
It's repetitive. It does have themes. It's really well thought out if you look at the arrangements of the song. But of the 88 minutes on this album, you could literally cut every song in half by just its section and almost end up with the same format, right?
Right.
You'd just be losing the duration and the length of the song. If you strung them all together, you'd have a hell of a DJ set, frankly, because there's some pretty stark tempo changes.
Yeah.
I owned a lot of like drum and bass, like Diesel Boy and Aphrodite stuff back in the day. And what you get out of these, even if you get into like the Goa music scene specifically, they got really big into like, there is 1 BPM that you play. Not here.
Correct. That's why I'm saying that's why I don't feel like this one inspires me to dance. There are tempos that are dance tempo for sure. But I also feel like the vibe doesn't bring that energy forward in many of these songs.
No, it's controlled, subdued.
Yeah.
These tunes, and like I said, I think that dance culture pushed this style along. I'm not saying that LTJ was necessarily, or this album was necessarily a dance album. He does have them. When he goes out, he knows how to play a dance album, and it's rare you're going to hear any of these songs on when he's playing live, when he's trying to rip a room. Right. But this to me is more mature, a Midnight Drive type scenario. Just a back lounge with a martini type stuff. You know?
I agree.
All right, can't wait to hear your thoughts on it after this break.
Are you tired of parties where everyone leaves alive? Velvet Antler Events curates evenings that do not exist for guests who are not seen in places that cannot be found on any map you are meant to have. Our events begin with silence, a car with no plate, a door in the woods, a masked figure who gestures once and never speaks again. Inside you find velvet walls breathing gently, and group coitus. Candles that burn with no flames, guests who move like memories and will not just look you in the eye, they look through you. We design rites disguised as galas, processions, reversals, hidden rooms where someone is always waiting, and no one knows who paid for the night. Until they do. One of our best-selling events at Velvet Antler is the Tasting Line. A long corridor, dimly lit. 12 masked attendants kneel in silence, each offering a silver spoon resting on a velvet cushion. Guests move slowly, sampling from each, not knowing whether they're tasting rare delicacies, obscure aphrodisiacs, or carefully disguised replicas of bodily fluids. No one explains. No one reacts. There are no labels, only the sound of a string quartet playing one continuous, unresolved chord. There's a bell that rings once. There is a name whispered backwards. There is always one guest who was not invited. Velvet Antler. This is not an event. This is Dominion.
Well, paint me surprised. Had I known that existed, I probably would have lost my toenails like 10 years ago.
Yeah, but you have to be careful when you say things like paint me surprised. You heard about the Goldfinger girl, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That happens.
So, PSA.
Oh, for those who may have forgotten where we are doing a nice little piece of content where I suggested a new album to Dan he's never heard before. This is LTJ Bukem's Journey Inwards. 2000 is when it was released. It is 14 songs long and runs at a sweet 1 hour and 22 minutes. You're welcome.
Thank you. So you had said, before the break that I asked, why did you give me this album? And that was not that was not me being upset with the content of the album. It was me trying to figure out, how do I go through this musically, given some of these songs are vibe.
Oh, yeah, most of them are.
Right. And so how can I give a lot of detail on that, especially in 72 hours, when at first blush, one might say they all sound like the same song. They are definitely not the same song.
Agreed.
But at first blush, I'm like, oh, what are you doing to me? So how do I make this interesting from a podcast perspective? It wasn't, so it wasn't musical content. So I'm going to start right out of the gate. I really enjoyed the music on this album.
Great.
This album sounds fantastic, and his production and sampling, and you talked about it's meticulous. It's hard to understand sometimes. Like, yes, he's using samples. Sometimes it's drum machine, and the level of detail that comes out in here. He's classically trained. He's a musician, can play several instruments, and plays I think Rhodes on this.
Yeah, literally a song called "Rhodes to Freedom."
Yes. Yep. And so yes, at first blush, I'm listening to this, and my son's home, and I'm like, I gotta punch Carl in the nuts here, because how do I get through all of this? But let's just start right from the very beginning. We start off with Journey Inwards. And this song, the album is split. It's a double album, and there's definitely some high points and low points, even from a numbers perspective. And I love, right out of the gate, there's this double bass that comes in, and it's played by Andy Hamill. It goes A Hamill on the record, but Andy Hamill.
Okay.
And the bass part reminds me of a combination of a couple of songs.
I can't wait to hear.
It reminds me of a combination of, a combination of A Love Supreme by John Coltrane.
Definitely.
And So What by Miles Davis.
Yeah. These are very jazzy licks. It has this great little, it's like a gliss that sounds like a bend, because it's really hard to bend on upright, but it's stylistically thrilling.
Yeah. And then there's a really obscure thing that I get. So did you ever watch Twin Peaks?
No.
So
I've been told I should.
You should. And so after Twin Peaks, there was a movie called Fire Walk with Me. And the composer for Twin Peaks is a gentleman by the name of Angelo Badalamenti. And there's a song on the soundtrack to Fire Walks with Me called Real Indication, which has double bass and cello, there's some cello on here for sure. Not in this song, but on other songs. Well, it might be on this one. And that's we should check out Real Indication at some point. It's a really interesting tune that you would not expect. But the reason I get that, songs don't sound anything like each other, but sonically the bass is mixed so intensely, which for double bass,
it's rare.
It's rare because double bass doesn't cut.
No, it's a pain to mic even when you have direct inputs on them. They're just generally, they don't have a lot of sustain.
Yeah.
Unless you have a bow.
Yeah. And so that's nice. There's a lot of Rhodes in this song. This is a really fun song. There's a nice descending scale in thirds, which is basically Riders on the Storm.
Yep.
That goes through here. The flute played by Andy Ross. The song's awesome. Really enjoyed it.
I always, this song brings me a lot of comfort as an opening track personally.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. Then brings you into Watercolors, because since he's a Brit, Queen's English here. So there's this nice set of offset hits with the synth and the sax that really brings me in here. And what really brings me into this one, I'm not going to go beat by beat for these things, because how long is this one? Is this one 7 minutes? Yeah. There's a lot going on here. Is this the biggest hit I think so. Yeah.
This one has edged out Journey Inwards by just a couple 100,000, but yeah, it sits at a sweet 3.7 million.
Yeah. Really enjoyable to me. There's also really buried in the mix. I don't know if you noticed this. There's a descending like chromatic sax line that repeats itself. Like,
I wouldn't call that buried at all. It's they pull out the drums for that part. It's one of the reasons I assigned this to you.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like most of the time, like maybe because unfortunately, I only listen to this on AirPods.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, the orchestral arranging here, I was like, oh, Dan's gonna like this.
Yeah,
and there it's this dissonant chromatic walk down over this melody on these tenors, and then it has like this counterpoint line that comes in on like what might be a bass, electric bass.
Yeah,
it's a really nice piece of music.
Yeah, no, I think this one's all electric bass and watercolors. If I recall, I don't have these committed to memory. And so to be clear, the styling, the musical phrasing is definitely very vibey. There's a lot of seventh chords, a lot of minor chords, very jazz influenced music that's going on throughout pretty much all of these songs.
That's definitely his signature for sure.
Yeah, and fantastic. And I did watch a little blurb of him just basically talking about how he's introduced to like Chick Corea and people like that, and that sort of like changed his trajectory musically.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, watercolors, that was good. Just sort of moving on. Rhodes to Freedom. It's a bit of a slow burn to start off with. It takes a minute for this song to sort of kick in. An interesting thing that came to me eventually. So I don't know, about 3.5 minutes in, there's a horn sample that I'm like, what the hell is that?
Like you recognized it?
I recognized it. And then when I found out what it was, this one I could find out what it was. I'm like, I don't know that song. Well, I didn't know that I knew the song. It's a song called I Saw You When I Met Her by David Ruffin.
David Ruffin?
David Ruffin.
And the Temptations?
And the Temptations, David Ruffin.
Oh my God, David Ruffin, that egomaniac.
Yep.
Oh my God. I have a friend, my buddy, a good comedian, Dalen Morrison, who loves to tell the David Ruffin stories and kind of how he just went off the rails.
Yeah.
Dalen, if you're listening, Ruffin's now in the algorithm.
There we go.
I hate that he's going to get any listens off of this.
Yeah. Now, this is the first song where I hear what I consider traditional like drum and bass. Mm-hmm. Like the drum groove is that, and this is the stuff that you hear like Jojo Mayer or Johnny Rabb trying to like emulate. Those are two drummers, for those people who don't know, who decided, hey, you know what? All the stuff that these people are programming into the drum machines that people are thinking is impossible. Nah,
I'm going to emulate that now.
Yeah.
And they'd build their kits with these really tight drums and small cymbals that sounded like, the traditional patches you'd pull off of a Roland or
Yeah. So this is the first place that I am getting what I think drum and bass is.
I didn't think about that coming in though. Wow. And because you and I, especially with like Johnny Rabb, you and I used to, like, when we first met, one of the things we'd fanboy over was him. And then of course when Jojo Mayer was popping off with like Nerve.
Yeah.
As drummers, we really liked that style. I didn't put two and two together, but that's actually a really nice segue for you as a listener to come in and be like, oh, cool. This is the style these guys are literally copying.
Yeah. Because like in the, I think in watercolors, like not watercolors, in Journey Inwards, essentially the drum beats your amen break.
Yeah.
That's what that.
Could do in chat.
Yeah.
But watercolors.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all that, like real tight,
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. In that. So, and the other thing I like about Rhodes to Freedom that I wrote a little note down is the digital like rain stick. Sort of
it
vibe.
is wild.
Yeah.
And it's, of course, like everything else, drenched in verb.
Yes. Yeah. Again, everything in here is a mood. It took me a little bit of time to try to like sit and, again, we only had 72 hours, so I didn't have much time to like sit and like consciously listen.
Sure.
This music fits perfectly in the background. As a software engineer, I would code to this all day long. If you're a student, study this. Like,
I mean, yeah, this is like the OG lo-fi hip hop like substitution.
Yeah. That doesn't mean it's boring.
No, but it stays enough out of the way with high level production. It's easy on the ears.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, like sonically, everything just like fits really nicely like into the space. Even like I said, I didn't get to listen on anything better than AirPods, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
I mean, I listened a little bit in the car, but
Your car system's not bad.
yeah.
This, if you have hi-fi,
Yeah.
this is one to really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because I don't think you should have to go through 88 minutes of
I will not.
content, what are some more highlights or lowlights or things that stood out to you on this album?
I just have to mention really quickly on the next song, Our World. I love the vibra slap.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
It's all over the place in that song.
And that's an interesting tune
Yeah.
because it's kind of sparse and it has these really crazy piano musical moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
A nice little monologue.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The first time you hear like a human voice.
And it's a kid. It's a young man with good outlook.
Yeah. I have no idea where is that sample from something? I don't even know what that is.
It could have just been field recorded. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a sweet moment, and it makes you kind of, I don't know. There's this notion of like beauty and progress, kind of all at once that I
Yeah.
feel good about.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like the timpani in it was actually just played.
It may have been because
Yeah.
it's like borderline out of tune. Like
Yep.
they don't know what they're doing. They're just whacking the hell out of the thing. You
Yeah.
hear the wrong.
Yeah.
Like whoever's timpani were those were pissed the way they were being used.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll skip past Undress Your Mind. I like it, but that one's all right for me. I do like when the song picks up pace and the drums almost go to like a Motownish kind of feel in that, but it feels like the song's not going to go anywhere for about 2.5 minutes. For me, not a big deal.
I agree. By the way, when you say that,
Yeah.
I agree with you pretty much across the board. Like these songs are A, they can't all be bangers, and
Yeah.
B, there is like the slow burn mentality. There's a formula like any other song. You kind of like build up to the next part.
But then you get to Point of View.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. Like, this is like 2 minutes and something. This is a short one.
Point of view? No, point of view is 2:15.
Yeah, that's what I said. Point
Sorry,
of View.
viewpoint is the one after it though, which is crazy.
Right. Because
At
obviously,
8 minutes.
yes. So Point of View is, I believe, is the intro to Viewpoint.
Indeed.
Right. Just like Quentin's Coming. It was the predecessor to Pack the Pipe.
No.
Yeah.
Oh no. I love it. For those who haven't picked up on our Far Side episode from last season, you're really missing out on a good one.
Yeah. So Point of View is awesome. This is where we get cello or celli, right? And actually, this is a very nice departure. And if you think of this as a complete album as opposed to two albums, because this is the second to last song on disc 1 of this, it's just a really nice breakup. It's this orchestral, like it's like a part of a soundtrack.
It
almost.
does have cinematic quality.
Yeah, but not cheesy in any way. It's really a beautiful piece of orchestral music.
Oh, good. I'm
Yeah.
so happy.
And then you flip right around to basically the introduction of Viewpoint, which is like a percussion ensemble,
It is indeed.
that kind of comes in, which flows nicely. So obviously Viewpoint, Point of View, juxtaposition of the thing. And then it takes about 1:40 before the instrumentation really breaks in. And then the song's a long one. This song doesn't hit for me too hard. I mean, I like it, but to me, if I were buying this on vinyl or this is like or even on CD, let's say I was going to buy on CD, that's probably more appropriate for this. To me, this song kind of is kind of a drift for the end, right?
I agree with you. It's funny. You could have probably just kept Point of View and then turn over to disc 2.
Which of course is going to be my favorite track because it has singing.
Yeah. Well, and so you get over to disc 2, and in my mind, you have this. The vibe never quite goes back. It's different.
Yes.
The whole disc 2 and disc 1 experience are very different.
That's true. That's true.
And this is common of the time. ATB came out with this album at the time called Two Worlds that did pretty well. And it kind of had the same thing. They're like, okay, up front it's going to be all kind of one thing. You get to disc 2, and here's some other ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sun Rain, sorry, you were just talking.
Yeah. Sun Rain is my favorite song.
Great vocal performance.
Yeah. And
It sounds like Sade, doesn't it?
I give it a Swedish Taboo by Sade.
Yes!
Yes, I definitely get that. You could mash these songs up. They're in different keys. I think this is in B flat and that's in E or something like that. But if you just like transpose it,
E to B flat. That sounds great.
yeah, yeah, a little tritone.
I was gonna say.
Yep, for sure. I'm not a huge fan of like there's like a buzz sample that accompanies the Rhodes bass line at the beginning, but then when the bass guitar comes in with like this harmonic flourish, fantastic.
It's a deep groove.
Yeah, it's really good. This is a good song. It's short, so it's funny because some of these longer songs are ones that I'm less interested in. Mostly because of the repetition. Because I'm not afraid of a long song. Hell, when we did the Stooges, I was the one who liked "We Will Fall" at like 9 minutes of nonsense, literally nonsense.
Not I, said the Carl.
Right. So it's not that I don't like a long song, but I definitely like this one. Of course, I would like this one. It feels more like a. They all feel like songs, but this feels like a song.
Well, I think the introduction of a sung vocal part, because we had vocal samples earlier,
Yep.
is incredibly refreshing, especially for a lead track on second disc.
Yeah. So not to belabor all of this, I'll just give you some highlights and some other things here. Moving on. So Deserted Vault. I'm going to say this twice about this. Deserted Vault instrumental. Just so you
Air quotes.
Yes. Well, I think it's funny because obviously Sun Rain is sung, and I think I do think that's a joke, right? Because almost everything else on here is all instrumental.
Yes.
It's just like, don't worry, man, we'll get back to the vibes.
The regularly scheduled program.
Yeah. And there's a drum groove that comes in here that's not exactly the same, but the production style is similar. It's a similar groove and similar production style to Super Bon Bon.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it's not the same song, but I get a little bit of Super Bon Bon in there, and I get a little Mario vibes in this one.
No doubt.
Yeah,
I hear it too.
Yeah.
I love that part. I think it's just such a cool play on that riff, that sample, right?
Yeah. Inner Guidance, maybe my second favorite song in here. It's got some Crystal Blue Persuasion vibes sort of going on there. Might even be sampled.
It's the listener's third favorite at 1.4 million.
Yeah, this
streams.
is a really nice tune. This just feels good to me. Basically, I'm just saying Crystal Blue Persuasion because that's, if you want to get sort of a bit of that vibe of what we're talking about, if you know that song, then
Yeah, I'm familiar.
yeah.
I agree with you entirely.
yeah.
I think this has always been a highlight for me on disc too.
Yeah. My next Mario reference is close to the source. That is literally Rainbow Road from Mario Kart. I actually put on Rainbow Road, which came out before this.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure the Mario Kart was out before this.
It
but
was. It's the
knows?
same fucking song.
Someone's got to hold him accountable for that.
It's not, but you can put them side by side. I'm like, yeah.
LT Daniel J. If
Yeah.
we ever interview you, you better be ready.
Ready for
With
some
explanations,
Rainbow
bro.
Road, man. And then I'll just kind of zip through the rest of this. Suspended Space gives me, obviously this came out before this, but it gives me, if you want to get into a vibe, I get Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's probably a lot of the choice of the hardware
Yeah.
or software, probably the hardware he was using.
Yeah. Do you know like some of the key things that he was?
All I know is that there's this swell. It does sound a lot like that old Yamaha processor, the TX7. It
Yeah.
has that bell chime to it.
Yep.
Which that you'll hear throughout time. You know, that board and the mod, they started that kind of processing and that sound back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the cool parts about the entire culture of electronic music production, when people first started calling themselves producers, digital producers,
Yeah.
was trying to go get your hands on somebody has this thing sitting at their house or this MIDI module.
Yeah.
Back before everything was a downloadable or USB easy in, as we call it MIDI today, back when crap was hard.
Yeah.
And you had to get connectors, and sometimes you're in the UK, you're trying to get the right American power source for the thing you want.
Right.
It was as important as crate digging was for DJs with records, you know. And so finding a tone like that when the emulators weren't available,
Right.
I think was an achievement.
Yeah. And crate digging is the thing for this album for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you think about like early samples, like early like hip hop and rap samples, they were just like direct samples. But if you listen to some of these samples, you're not going to catch it right out of the gate because they're manipulating them. They would like take the album, bounce it to, I don't know, 8-track or whatever they are, strip out different parts. This was a labor of love to really like, I can't overstate like how meticulously put together these tracks are, knowing that yes, there are real instruments on this album for sure. There are real players, real flute, real Rhodes, real bass, but a lot of real samples, a lot of real drum machines that are programmed with a drummer's ear.
That's right. Wow, way to say it. It's with the care.
Yeah.
You're treating your samples like real instruments, and you're blending in your real instruments to the point where you could probably have a debate with other musicians about a couple elements here as to is that sampled?
Yeah. And for the whole like drum and bass being almost impossible to play, there's nothing on here that's impossible to play.
No, not at all. It's not flashy.
No, I'm not Jojo Mayer, but I could play these songs. So all of this music could be played live.
Which I would love to see. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's a thing on here that you could not
replicate.
Yeah.
You need a big ass band. But
yes,
you could
would.
replicate it.
Yes, you could. Yeah. And the last thing I'll just talk about, I'm going to skip Unconditional Love, not because I don't like it, but just to sort of get a vibe is, and I'm curious your thought is this, is Feel What You Feel. I get Pat Metheny with a house groove.
Yeah. I like the Metheny call here.
Yeah.
It, first of all, kind of just echoes what we've been saying the whole time, which is this jazz influence.
Yeah.
Pat Metheny as a guitar player, distinct player.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that he did so well is he had really, really cool chord voicings and like inner workings and melodies.
He did triads, which is kind of interesting for a jazz player. A lot of triads, a lot of inversions.
Indeed. And so when you look at those chord voicings, he played guitar like he was playing a piano.
Correct.
Not guitar by this is the easiest position on the chord I'm used to playing.
Yeah.
As a guy who plays some guitar over here, like I fall for the same 7 shapes and 9 shapes and 13 shapes, and I know all of those shapes off the E and the A string. Metheny kind of skipped that. Instead, his whole take was like, I hear these notes stacked in this order, and I'm going to go there first.
Yeah.
Not for what you were taught, but more he's playing for his ear. And when you talk about inversions, I hear them here.
Yeah. And when I say he's playing triads, I don't mean that to be like he's
third, fifth.
What's that?
It's not always root third, fifth.
It's not, but and a lot of guitar chords aren't that anyway. He's not playing campfire chords, right? He's playing triads as a part of the harmony. We said this on 3 or 4 episodes where the bass can dictate the harmony. What Pat Metheny is doing in his harmonic arrangements is he is recognizing he is one of the instruments in the ensemble, and other instruments, like the chords are not, it's not that there aren't rich chords on Pat Metheny songs. It's like, but he's not playing all the notes because he doesn't have to.
And there's a really open beauty to that.
Yeah.
And there's a massive difference in this intermediate to advanced level guitar player that I think you and I both have access to in our greater community. We're accomplished enough.
Yep.
We know these guys where you can see the ones who know all the notes and can play the big pretty chord, and sure, that has a place. There's something really stunning about the folks who have the restraint.
Yeah. I mean, we've been in bands where I've been talking to the guitar player. I'm like, I just need you to play these 3 notes. Carl's got the rest, and our keyboard player's got the rest.
We'll sing a harmony too.
And so he's like, what chord am I playing? Oh, a D. That's not the whole harmony, but you just need to play a D.
Just play a D.
Yep.
And it seems like you sure?
Yeah.
And then when the chord comes together, especially when you put a bass under it, so you get that octave away from everything.
Yep.
It's rich and it serves the song.
Right. Or you might be playing a B in the bass and now it's a, B minor chord or whatever. Right.
That's exactly right.
So, and when I know in the time when I was saying that, I think the guitar player was looking at me as I was like belittling him by giving him less work to do.
Like I can't play a 6-string chord.
Yeah. But that's not what the song needs. The song needs a D up top.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I get that vibe out of feel what you feel.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Overall,
overall, I really enjoy this music. I think this music fits a certain spot in my life. This is not like an everyday I've got to put this on. This is I need to feel a certain way, or I'm doing something like going for a run or something like that. Only because I think duration-wise, I don't know that I need 88 minutes of this for the most part as a primary activity.
Oh yeah, I agree with you entirely, and I don't think that this album is one where you're like, "Hey guys, go listen to this album through and through; it'll change your life."
Right.
No, this is like, "Hey guys, hard day, pour yourself a whiskey, smoke something, chill out on your couch, scroll through your phone, and turn this on in the background."
Yeah.
And it'll soothe you.
Yeah. Yeah. But overall, this is an expertly crafted, double album, fantastic performances throughout. Yeah.
I'm thrilled you like it.
Yeah. Much so.
I also really like this segment. I look forward to doing these more often because our mission, like number one mission on going through this top 500 list is exposure to music, right? And what better way to celebrate exposure to music than going off of that list? And I mean, you look at some of the songs on just this album alone, 377,000 streams, 511,000 streams. This ain't making the top 5,000 list,
Right.
And so it's really kind of cool to find it. I also just like hearing kind of where you were, for this album or what it means to you.
Yeah. No, I'm enjoying this. I think this is fun, and hopefully you as listeners are enjoying this as well.
If you want to be part of this or have any suggestions for us for future here, we'd love to hear from you. You can catch us at
backwardsbeatpodcast@gmail.com
or on the gram
at backwardsbeatpodcast.
And we super appreciate you diving in on this little bit of side content as we prep for season 2.
Yay!
See you later. Backwards Beats Podcast is a Tunewood production recorded live at Thought Shack Studios in Halethorpe, Maryland.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us at Backwards Beats Podcast on most platforms.
Share the love, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the next album on Rolling Stone Magazine's Top 500 list. Until then, salt your melons.